So tonight's speaker is from Oakville, Ontario, originally. Played 4 seasons major junior, won a Memorial Cup, drafted by the Columbus Blue Jackets in the second round, won a World Junior Championship for Team Canada in 2008. Played 8 years of pro. Is that right, Steph? 8 years pro?
Yeah, I think so. It seems like it's 800, but yeah, 8.
Yeah. So in North America and a little bit over in Europe too. Transition to coaching right out of playing. So I don't know. I always find presenters that are close to playing have a different approach to presenting that's really good, just because they're in the process of transitioning between player and coach. So Steph's been coaching in the major junior league for 4 years now, 5 years.
Yeah, this is my 6th season doing it.
Okay. So wealth of information here. I'm going to turn it over to Steph and let him run with it. And thanks for coming on, gang.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks for everyone taking your time to listen to the presentation. I'm just going to share my screen here and get into it. Let's see. Is that good? We got that? Okay. Now I just got to get out of this. Come on. There we go. Sorry, you learn with hockey computers that they're awful. Okay, so the main topic I'm here to talk about is obviously developing defensemen. Something I'm really passionate about. I think it's kind of an under-taught area of the game. I think the skills are taught offensively. You see a lot of people teaching walking the blue line and all that, but I think there's a lot more that goes into defending as more than just skating backwards into our own end and then hoping that we get the puck back. I believe there's a process to it and methodology that can kind of give us the puck faster, play on half ice, and kind of really keep the game tilted in our favor. So just go into some of that and just quickly about myself. And we kind of went into it there. It's my 6th year as a coach. Fortunate enough to have coached in all 3 leagues, the OHL, the QMJHL, and the Western Hockey League. So that's something I'm fortunate to be able to say. I was fortunate enough again to win the Memorial Cup last year as a coach in St. John, something that I'll cherish forever. As a player, went into it before, but won a World Junior and was drafted fairly high into the NHL. So a lot of experience in myself, not necessarily playing the game, but being around a lot of people, and fortunate a lot of my experiences to have learned from a lot of smart people. So a lot of the stuff I'm talking about today isn't just my own. It's kind of a collection of knowledge over the years. Just to go into kind of the main thing that I believe in my teaching principles, it's marginal gains and trying to get 1% better every day. I'm sure a lot of you have heard about this and you preach this as well in yourself and your lives and with your teams and with everything like that. But for me, it's just so important. And I really like it because this diagram kind of shows a graph. And if you were to put this as September and put this as, say, March, you can really start to see the growth in a player. And I think now with players, they're so visual to be able to show them something like this and kind of get them to buy into that 1% better in everything they do, whether it be passing, skating, eating, sleeping, their schoolwork, because they're still kids that we work with. All of that stuff leads up to better human beings and leads up to better athletes. So for me, that's something I really believe in. And a quote that I'll use with the D in Spokane is, day by day, in every way, I'm getting better and better and better. It's something Mike Tyson's trainer made him say to himself. And I think it's just something so true. You wake up, you start the day believing that you're going to get better. And I think it just puts you on a path to actually do that. So to kind of get into what I'm going to talk about and more of the hockey side is defending the rush. And for me, there's a few keys to actually being able to do this. And the first one you'll see here is the count. And the count is so important. It's knowing where everybody is. It's seeing 5 guys in front of you and knowing and trusting that you can now get up ice and eliminate room for them to create. So the ability for defensemen to scan and always know where their 5 players are, even if one of us has to come back into the neutral zone because somebody's stretched, you have 4 players in front of you, your partner can still stay up, and you can really start to play a brand of hockey that's really aggressive, but also safe because you're trusting that there's always guys in front of you. The next thing for me is the skating patterns, and really the ability to not be flat-footed is so important, especially with the way that forwards are starting to skate. you have guys like McDavid and Barzell and, you know, some of the players in our league that are coming up with Bedard and Stankoven. And, you know, there's a lot of really fast twitch skaters out there. So for a defenseman to be flat-footed, it's really, really going to be detrimental. So I believe in a lot of skating patterns that put guys into positions, or girls into positions that are going to allow them to be on their toes in an athletic position, ready to handle that speed as it comes. And then the last thing that I focus on is the communication. If we can talk between our partners and everything, it's going to be so much smoother. It's going to be so much cleaner. The more you can talk, it's 4 sets of eyes, it's 4 ears. There's just so many benefits to you and your partner talking on the ice, allowing you to understand these situations quicker. You know, maybe the strong side D has to be a little bit more puck focused, the weak side D not as much. So he can really be spending a lot of his time looking around, helping his partner out with vocal cues and stuff like that. So just to get into some video of what kind of the count and stuff looks like, here's us in Spokane, and there's some diagrams here. So there's 5 guys on Seattle. They're all up here in half of the on this portion of the ice. So for our 2D, we would want to be up, and we would want to be up here. We don't get up here. We fall back. Now you can see we've given a huge gap. And now as this clip runs out, from a position where we could have defended well, we've given one of the top 5 point getters in our league an opportunity to enter the zone with full possession. Oh, sorry, this next one. Let me just turn the volume off here, guys. Sorry, I apologize for that. There we go. All right. So this next clip is going to be an example of positive examples of this. So again, we're looking at Florida. There's 5 guys below the top of the circle. Washington's D here, and Iskanen recognizes this. He does a great job staying up. His partner's up. They take that away from him, and just with simple trust of his count, Washington's able to go from a fast break opportunity for Florida to now a 3-on-2 opportunity for them. So that count is so important. The more you can trust what you see and be up ice, you can get the puck back so much quicker. Then you can focus on your transition, all the skills that, you know, players are spending so much time working on, the passing, the entering the zone, the cutbacks, all that fun stuff with the puck. Now you can let your team do that a lot faster and a lot more efficient because you're up and you're taking the puck in a lot better position. So some of the keys were the count, the communication, the skating patterns, some of the main skills for that and how you're going to teach this to defensemen and the way that we do it here. The first one being pivots. And I made this bold, needs single leg strength for all of these skills. And we'll go into some drills in the next little part to kind of talk about how to develop that. But it's so important for all players really, but especially defensemen, to be able to have that single leg strength. So much of the pivoting, defending is off one leg, and the ability to powerfully get back into the middle of the ice or powerfully step with a forward who's in full flight, skating forward is going to be so beneficial. Next, getting into the pivots, obviously there's the forward and back. There's 2 variations of this. There's toes first, there's heels first. I prefer teaching toes first because I like our defensemen skating forward as much as possible. We talked about the McDavids and stuff like that. It's almost impossible to defend these guys skating backwards. So as much forward skating we can do as possible, the best. So that puts us in a position to do the toes first pivot. With a lot of younger players, you're still going to need to practice heels first. It's, you know, going to be a preference, but as they start to develop into higher levels, their coach will have a more firm plan of how he wants them to defend, and he'll decide that for them there. But for this point, you need to be developing both. And then the main point for the pivot would be that chest, keeping the chest square, your ability to have your chest in your eyes to your defender all the time. You know, I talk about in a more intensive discussion about your eyes and your posture and all that. But the more that you can keep your chest square, the more it's going to keep all of that in place for itself. The next pivot is the open hip, and we'll go into that with some video. But that's really your main skill in defending the rush, your ability to transition from backward to forward without taking that big step and attack on a 45-degree angle. Some of the keys to that: small step, pulling your hand so your stick is first, and then the powerful push. That's where that single leg strength comes into play. The next skill we'll talk about is the stick detail. It's so important. If you were to walk around with your stick on the ice or even just in a room right now and you point that stick, wherever that stick's pointed, your body is going to follow. So it's crucial to have your stick down and working to get it into the puck. We'll get into a video where it shows where you should attack on that, but it's just such an important skill for players to have. They need to have their stick on the ice. That's where all the plays happen. Sometimes your body's there, but your stick's up in the air and the guy can still make that pass. So you need to have that stick down. And then just the next point is that first point of contact. We're always going to be the longest with our stick. So we've got to make sure that it's down. We've got to make sure that it's out when we're defending. And then the last skill, and this can be something that you add to every single drill, everything you do, is just making players look around and scan. The more that they've scanned, the more that they can get that count, the more that they're able to understand the situation, they understand the other team's outs, and they're able to defend quicker. So anytime guys are just skating up and down the ice, have them looking around, have them checking the boards, have them every time they're skating, looking around with their heads up, because it's going to allow them to process situations even faster. So to get into some of that, the skills to develop the single leg strength, this is from my time in St. John. We're watching this guy here. He's an NHL drafted defenseman, and he's still being told by his NHL team to work on this stuff. So it is so important, even at our level, to develop that strength. So the more you can work it in at a younger age, the more beneficial it's going to be for the kids. So as this goes, all we're working on here is just weight shifts, pivoting from one side to the other, understanding kind of that load and the push. It's just simple, no strides. All of his strength is being built up the ice by just shifting that weight. Oops, sorry. So to go back again, it's so simple, but all that it is getting them to understand the weight shift and feeling their power on one leg, transferring it to another. Back onto one leg, transferring it to another. As we keep going here, now we get into a little bit more. We start sliding on that one leg. We don't want to ever stop, but now the same method applies. He's loading and pushing, loading and pushing, loading and pushing, loading and pushing. Now, as we get into a little bit more detail, we start to amp it up. Sorry, the camera angle is not great, but watching on the bottom of his screen, working on the slide. Oh, sorry. Never mind. Working on the one-legged strength here on our inside edge. Something that's, I mean, I'm sure everybody does this, but just the ability to be strong on that one leg is so important. And as we get into the next little part, you'll start to understand why. And here, as he works his way back again, working on that good posture, chest up, eyes up, the ability to hold that edge, becoming strong on that one leg. Here we go again, working on a slide, loading that leg, taking off and exploding. So again, as he goes, it's all about this slide here. He never fully stops. Now, boom, that's the power that we're looking for, because as we get into these next parts of the video, that's the leg strength he's going to need to defend the rush and pivot to handle speed. So you can see a little demo by myself, telling him to really focus on that snap. And then one more time, works on that drive, explodes his way back. Now, as we start to get into a little bit more detail on the pivot, this is working on the hand and stick. I like using the blue line because it gives them a linear target. If they can get their hand out and their stick pulled through properly, it'll keep them straight. So again, what we're looking for here is as he goes to pull, his first move is pulling that arm back and getting his stick out in front of him. So as he turns, now he's right into a straight line skating stride or wherever he needs to go. As that develops, now we'll get into a little bit more here, focusing on this end down here. So as we come around, now you'll see the toe first pivot. Now from here, this is that one leg strength, opening the hip, exploding, stick first, working on defending the rush. Now we'll get into some examples from our guys doing it. Working back, pulls that hand, explodes off his leg, nice small step to get out and eliminate that player off the rush. And then here, this is a video that I stole from Tampa Bay's skill development. This is what they're teaching. So just kind of so you can believe at every level that this is true. So for Tampa, there's their count, working to get into the middle of the ice. Now from here, he's in the middle of the ice, and we'll get into more of that as we go. But here's his first pivot, the 12-3. Open hip, no cross, the small step. And now that stick detail. And this is an important point. He attacks between the heel of the stick and the feet. That's where a lot of plays are going to happen. So what he's forcing him to do is have to be extended with the puck. And now he's a lot less comfortable. He's going to have to lose a little bit of his posture and his strength. And it puts us in a position to defend this play. So now as Hedman comes through, he's able to take that puck and go. So now we'll get into kind of some of the rush situations that you'll face. And again, this might be a little bit advanced for some of the levels, some of the guys and girls that you coach. I'm not exactly sure. There's a lot of coaches on the call. I'm sure some of you guys are with 10-year-olds, but really it's more about just getting you guys to see the importance of being up in the play as opposed to just falling back, and being aggressive and how it can make a big difference in your ability to, one, to get pucks back, but to play a more fun brand of hockey for your kids. It's going to be a lot more exciting than just kind of falling back in between the dots and hoping that you get the puck back at your net and then you can go. So the first example we're going to go through is a one-man exit, and it's a surf. And what we're focused on here is either this guy or this guy is going to exit the puck with no real support. So the keys is the scan, the awareness to know that he's alone. We're going to have our stick down as we come across to provide resistance to the middle, and we're going to finish hard through the hands. And how that looks on video is this. So real nice job here from our D up on the gap. You can see it. There's the 5, so he's up. Now as this play starts to work its way across, he recognizes 47's alone. He doesn't just fall back into here. He stays right up on him. His partner falls back underneath, and he's able to get that puck back. So instead of defending where we would fall back and he would fall back, we trust that there's no one behind us. We're able to get up and kill this play before a pretty good player in our league can get the puck and establish something through the neutral zone. Again, watching Victor Hedman here with the fancy graphic. He recognizes that there's good numbers back for him. He's got a great step on this puck carrier. He's able to come across and eliminate. One more time watching this over here. Real good job on the gap here. Real nice job on the gap here. Now this guy's by himself. The D trusts he can come over. He's able to lay a big body, and now Vegas is able to transition with numbers off a quick play. So where a lot of teams regularly would kind of just fall back as this guy comes across, we trust that we have no one behind us. We're able to get up and kill that play early. And kind of a drill that we do to focus or use that in Spokane, and we're looking at this end. So this is just going to be a pass up. He's going to leave. This defenseman's going to get back inside. He's going to recognize it, and he's going to slide over and take that away. So watching this end of the ice, there's the one guy alone, comes across with a good stick. He's able to kill that play. His partner grabs the puck, and we're back on the offense with that never crossing the half ice line. The second situation we're going to talk about is when these two guys exit alone. And this is probably the most common situation. And for me, I call it a funnel. And what we want to do is work to get off the wall and inside the dots. That's the key. The more that our defense can be inside of the dots, it forces the puck outside and keeps it away from the middle of the ice. We have a huge advantage as defenders in the boards. If we can be in here and force plays into this area, now we can force everything right into the boards and eliminate plays early. So as we work to get off the wall inside of the dots, our partner is going to do the same thing and come across and take this middle option. And now we're going to apply that open hip pivot, stick on puck, and finish through the hands. So we'll go into some video of how that looks here. So here, two guys exiting off the rush. Hershey does a good job recognizing it. He's inside of the dots. His partner's coming across. There's nowhere for Toronto to go but here. He forces him to the outside. They're able to get that puck back quickly and eliminate that play. For us here again in Spokane, we have kind of one guy out. It's a great job by our tracker. But again, you see our D works to get inside the dots. They're coming off the bench, so he doesn't have the time to get up, but he's here, so that's okay. And now the only place for this guy to go is here. We step with that hip, we finish hard, and we're able to get that puck back in transition and go. And then just one more example of this, and this is my favorite one. You can see the defenseman here, Green, coming across. There's his partner off the wall. He's not quite inside the dots, but he's close enough. And now for Pittsburgh, there's just nowhere to go. Even if he makes his pass, he's right there. They've got good numbers. They kill this play. They're able to grab the puck and go up the ice. And similar drill, now focusing on this side. This is how we work on that in Spokane. So as this play comes up, there's the breakout pass. Our D is going to get off the wall. He's a little bit early, but the play happens early. He forces him in. There's nowhere for them to go. And that's just something simple we do to get guys reps to kind of feel familiar with that situation. And then lastly, just a drill that I've kind of kicked in to work on everything. You're going to step off the wall, work on your pivot, grab a puck, pass it. Now you'll come across, work on your surf, retrieve that puck, move it to here, and then we're gone. And the way that drill looks is just like this, focusing on this end of the ice. So there's our D, steps off the wall with a good pivot, pulls his hands, stick first, finishes through the hands, grabs that puck, moves that puck up. Now he's going to work on his surf detail. So as he comes across, good stick to the middle, denying any ice, finishes through the hands, gets that puck back, moves it to his partner, up and we go. One more time here from the other side. So here he goes heel first pivot because he's a little bit lazy. But there he pulls that hand, he finishes through, we get that puck back. Now again, as he comes around, there's that stick denying the middle again, forcing that guy to go to the outside. He finishes through the hands, he grabs that puck, and he's up and he's gone. And that's basically the premise of my presentation. And again, a lot of it is you're not going to do it with a lot of your teams, but just to get you guys thinking about defending earlier, defending a little bit more aggressively when the situation calls for it. I don't believe in just over aggressiveness for no reason. You need trackers. You need awareness on where guys are. You need to know where speed is coming from. But once you start to pick up on a lot of these details and your D start recognizing that there's 5 people in front of them, they can really get up aggressively and kill plays early and get you right back onto the offensive side. Even at our level, it's painful teaching them how to play in the D zone. So that's why I try to spend as much time focusing on defending up the ice, because it's a lot easier to teach it to them there than it is to teach it to them in the other half of the zone where players are now so good with all the skill work they do. And I'm just going to share one more thing with you guys, just so you know I'm not fully full of crap. This is a report from our Western League. So our team, our entry denial success rate is 52%, second in the league. And if we go down a little bit, we give up the 5th most controlled entries against. So it does work for us. We're a very young team. We're not very good in the standings right now. But with this, we do a lot of good things. We make it harder on teams to score against us, and it allows us to have somewhat of an advantage going into games. So let me just get back to the Zoom. I'll stop my screen. If there's any questions, we can open up to that. I don't know how that was timing wise. Might have been a little quick.
Yeah, it's okay. Right on a half hour here. One thing I wanted to get you to just touch on, it was something from a previous presentation, was just the defenseman staying in motion in the offensive zone between the blue line and the top of the circles.
Okay, let me get back into share my screen. So let me just grab one of these pictures here. Sorry. There's the surf. Okay, so off of this picture here, what I'm talking about, I spoke about it in the skating patterns. And for us, as we entered the zone here, we have our 2D, we don't want them to just kind of enter the zone flat and come and stand here enter the zone and come and stand here. What I like them to do is this strong side D enters, he's going to enter through the middle of the ice. So now if something quickly does happen, he's in a good position to defend it forward. But if nothing happens and he comes in, he's perfectly backwards right into his spot. He can stop. Maybe he keeps moving around if the play's a little bit dead, but now his feet are always in motion. And same thing for his partner. As he enters, he can enter a little bit wider, knowing that he's going to pick up number 2 here. And then if nothing happens and the play breaks down in the corner, his skating pattern just kind of loops through here, and he's constantly checking in on number 2. So he maybe comes down, no play comes out, he pulls back out. He's available for his partner. You know, maybe the play it looks like it might come out, so he checks back in again, nothing happens. And he's just kind of skating in this circular pattern. And this strong side guy will do it a little bit less, but maybe he's kind of coming down and checking in and he's pulling back. That way you're always just in motion. Now, as these two guys take off up the ice, you've already got a little bit of momentum. You've maybe got a little bit of momentum, and now it allows you to get off the wall and inside the dots with some speed to handle that rush.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's really good. I think that'll go a long way. So I've got some questions, but I'll open it up to the floor first and see if anybody else has some. So either put them in the chat or just take your mute off and fire away.
Nobody's ever got questions.
Well, I'll fire one more at you. So when you're starting to teach the toes around turn to defensemen,
Yep.
do you find that they stay rigid through the core or lose sight? They don't want to keep their eyes on the player. Do they ever get their eyes lost, or what are the main, I guess, deficiencies you find when you start teaching toes around turns?
Yeah, I think it's the separation of the upper body and the lower body, really. And, you know, as a lot of players' toes start to come around, their stick and their chest will start to go with it. And kind of the way I used to describe it, and it's kind of hard to put a visual on it, but if I'm coming around that cone, I keep my chest square and I reach a certain point, and my one leg, it's almost like I'm just going to take a step up a stair. So now my chest stays square. I'm going to stand up here for a sec. My chest stays square and I just kind of pivot that inside or the outside foot back, and it allows me to separate my lower half and my upper half. And I think that's the biggest thing that would kind of get you in trouble as you come around, would be your toes pulling your chest and your stick with you. So if you can kind of keep your stick and chest square as your toes go, and then right as you feel like your body's going to turn, you just take that step back with the one foot, and it kind of squares everything back up again. It puts your feet underneath you, and it allows you to keep good posture right into your backward stride.
Okay. I got a question here from Kyle McLaughlin down in Canmore. What are your thoughts on teaching no crossover backward skating techniques for defending the rush?
Yeah, I mean, it's so important. Like, kids are going to need to cross over just based on leg strength at first, but the more you can implement it early, it's so crucial. Every forward is being taught to attack on a crossover. It also, it really hinders your ability to defend. It puts your feet in bad places. It does a lot of things to your posture that just aren't good. So the more you can teach it is at a young age. Like, if you feel like your players can handle it, start hammering it in, because they need to develop that strength in their legs, like I talked about earlier. So the more they can start kind of working on pumping their edges as they go back, the more beneficial it's going to be as they get older.
Any leg exercises to help defense off ice?
Yeah, I get a lot of our guys to do just single leg, even if it's that drill I showed at the beginning. Let me just try to find it here. The drill I showed at the beginning where my computer's a little bit slow, but where they were doing that one-legged slide,
yeah,
stuff like that, with like where there's those skater jumps and all that kind of stuff. Anything where you're loading one leg and exploding off it is going to really give you the benefit of the skills that you need to defend on the rush properly. because
I imagine that would translate directly to off ice too, just single leg squat, single leg explosiveness in the gym.
yeah, anything,
Yeah.
and even double leg too, because having the ability, like we talked about, we're not teaching crossover, so it is still a two-legged position. So anything that you're in that athletic hockey position, working on those leg muscles is going to be so beneficial, because defending requires good posture. Your eyes need to be up, your back angle needs to be good. So you need to be strong throughout your legs to hold your body in that position properly.
Yeah. One more in here. Earlier, Steph said the D-man was being a little lazy using heels first. Does he prefer toes first for D-men angling players? We teach both.
Yeah, the main reason I like toes first is at the beginning. I like our D to defend forward. So a lot of times I find that our guys should be in that position, but there's always times in a game where they're going to need to go heels first out of necessity. It's not one or the other. That I don't think that you should only teach one. I think they both need to be taught. I think the more important one with players at our level is the toes first, because of how, like I said, I want them defending forward. I want them skating forward as much as possible, based on a lot of the stuff I've talked about has them skating forward or working to get back to forward. But there's still times in a game where you get caught in a scrum and you need to get your heels around and get going backwards. So there's definitely not one or the other. I think they're both extremely important to know, but just as a preference for the way that I believe defending is done, I work with toes first mainly, just because a lot of my drills are already started with them skating forward and their toes are naturally going to go first.
Yeah. Here's a good one. I actually had this one wrote down on my sheet too. It's again, it's one that's been taught both ways. I've seen it over the years. So what stick detail do you teach for defensemen on the rush? Reaching to reduce the attacker's space, or keeping it close to give the perception that there is more space, and then shooting for a poke check? I know Scott Stevens did a presentation on this a few years back that was really good. What do you guys teach? What is your preference on that one?
I don't know, but now I'm scared to go against what Scott Stevens said.
Yeah.
For me, it goes back to what I said about the posture. I think it's so important to have your eyes up, to have a good back angle, to have your feet underneath you. And anytime you start reaching, I think you really lose that, and you lose the strength in your legs and your ability to defend. I think there's a time where you're going to poke, but it's more of a calculated time. I go back to that Hedman clip. He keeps his hand, pretty tight to his hip. And then as he drives through, that's when he starts to extend it, but he never really sacrifices his posture. And for me, that's the biggest thing in defending any situation, is the posture. I know we went and talked about a lot on the rush, but just the ability to have a good back angle, to have your stick in your hip, to have your feet underneath you is so much more valuable than trying to kind of make that desperation poke. And, to me, that desperation poke looks a lot like those inanimate objects that skills coaches have on the ice in summer that players are just waiting to see. So I think the perception of space is a lot more dangerous as a defender than showing my range and now becoming susceptible to movement, where if he moves, I can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that what Scott Stevens said?
Pretty close.
Okay, perfect.
With young players, U11, AA, what is the best way to get them to understand gap control? Is there a secret to judge how much space they need to have between their D partner and the offense? And I know you probably haven't had a ton of experience with this, so if you have some thoughts or even theory on it, just share away.
Yeah, I have theory on it for sure. I think it applies to everyone. It's a scary situation for a defenseman. Like, the second that rush starts coming, like, there's a lot of fear in a defenseman's eyes as the rush starts to develop. So I think the main thing to get them to be better at it is really force the issue in practice, but allow them to get beat. So put them up in a situation where they're going to get beat, but understanding that in a game, they're going to be timid and they're going to probably be 5 feet, 10 feet less than where you're used to practicing them. So really, if you can throw, I'll draw on this diagram again, But if you're doing a drill that's maybe a straight one-on-one drill, have the D just flat-footed right here and have speed coming. And then as you build, maybe he comes in and moves and now he has to grab ice, but force him to grab ice very low, almost to the point where this guy's going to beat him automatically. And the more you can do that and drive that into them as the game comes, like I said, their natural fear is going to be to fall back because nobody wants to get beat. But I think if their habit is to be extremely up in practice, then naturally they'll start falling back into a good position already because they'll have that little bit of timid, but they'll have the trust in the practice that you want them to be up. And I know it's 10 years old. It seems a little bit young, but I don't think it's a bad time to start, showing them what it feels like to get beat, because kids are pretty smart. They'll adapt fast and they'll figure out where they need to go to not get beat. And then you can kind of keep building it off of there. Maybe they're still too far back. So the next time you do a drill, you put it even closer. It's 5 feet more up. And now they're getting 5 feet more up in the gap and getting beat even more. But now the game comes and there's that 5 feet that you were worried about is now they're falling into that perfect spot.
Yeah, that's excellent. And second question came in on the same one. Is there a tip to teaching young players to stop backing up too soon or too deep? And I think what Steph just said here is exactly that. Trying to get them to understand that the speed differential is the biggest issue. Is that drill that he just showed there is perfect for getting them to match speed. Next one here, you discuss strategy for 1 versus 2 and 2 versus 2 rushes. Can you provide your key teaching habits for defending odd man rushes? 2 versus 1, 3 versus 2, 3v1.
Yes. So I have a 3-on-2 slide that I run just like this. And really how it would work if you were to, let's kind of flip everything. Everyone can see what I'm drawing on these?
Yeah, I think so. I can see it here.
Okay, so now we have 3 X's attacking. And the main key I teach is if we can use the blue line on a 3-on-2, then we're going to be extremely aggressive. So the puck carrier is going to kick it this way. Now, as soon as he kicks it, this D is going to jump and this D is going to slide over and take away his middle option. Only if you can use this blue line, because this guy is scared to death to turn this puck over. As you start to slide, you take away his closest option. This becomes a very hard pass for a lot of hockey players to make. At our level, it's tough for them to make it. In the NHL, it's tough for them to make it. So, I mean, I'm not going to tell you at 13 and under to start squeezing on 3-on-2s. But if you can kind of understand this concept of using the blue line and forcing this guy to have to make a play before it while taking away his quickest option, then you can really start to eliminate any sort of 3-on-2 entry. The other way, if they do get clean entry, I teach our D to fall back to the hash marks tight. Once you hit the hash marks, stop and defend like your life depends on it. We have to pick a point at somewhere in here where we're going to stop them, or else we can just keep drifting back and we'll end up running into the boards. So there has to be some sort of point if they have clear entry where I'm going to just say, okay, enough is enough, and we're going to make our stand and try to make you make a play at this point. For 2-on-1s, what I believe for a 2-on-1 is all about inside and outside sticks. So we have our defender, that's a terrible D. We have our defenseman coming back to the net. We have a puck carrier who's left-handed and he has the puck. Because he has his stick to the outside, as a defenseman, I'm going to shade over to here. I'm going to take away his pass and I'm going to let the outside stick take a shot on our goalie. It should be a fairly easy save for our goalie. I'm concerned by not letting him access the backside. I'm still holding maybe just inside this middle post so he can't get across, kind of putting that guy into an area to take a shot from here. I understand in minor hockey, there's guys can score from there, girls can score from there. There's difference in goalies, but at our level, if that goes in, it's only one person's problem in the rink, and it's our goalies. The other teaching is if this guy is right-handed coming down, so now his stick is on the inside. I'm going to back into the hash marks. Once he gets to about here, I'm going to jam and force him to make a play. Our goalie knows on this situation, they're going to have any pass across. So I'm going to force this guy to make a play around the hash marks. He's most likely going to pass it, but my goalie knows that. Now he's got the time to slide over and make the save, hopefully. It's still a 2-on-1 at the end of the day, so it might go in, but that's my thoughts on the 3-on-2 squeeze before the blue line, getting to the hash marks if they get the blue line, and then the 2-on-1s, it's all based on, is it an outside stick or is it an inside stick? If it's an outside stick, I'm letting the goalie take that shot all day. If it's an inside stick, I need to make a play on him at the hash mark or somewhere around there to try to get the puck out of his hands, with my goalie knowing that if it goes across, that's his responsibility.
Okay. Excellent. That one covers, there was another 2-on-1 question, but that covered it. One more here for you, and then we'll let you go. Coaching U15, where a good number of players are hitting for the first time. What's a good way to get them to engage that body contact and also timing their stick checking? You can see in a couple of your videos, finishing hard through the hands, stick first, but players are then off on their timing with the contact and catching the backside of the attacker, ultimately letting them by to the puck. So a little bit wordy there. I think we'll be able to decipher it.
Yeah, no, I think I got it. I think the main key as you're coming across and being physical, it goes back into that posture piece. If I can keep my eyes up and keep my back angle good and my feet good, I'm going to be able to finish through the body. And to your point about the hands, you definitely want to get through the hands. I think that hitting is kind of it's a misunderstood word in the game. Like, body contact isn't necessarily just to hit somebody. It's the whole purpose of it is to get the puck back. So I think what we're trying to do is just separate from the puck. So that's why for us, it's stick first and then through the hands, because if you can do that properly, now it puts you in position to get the puck with the player on your back. I think obviously the timing is the hardest piece of it. I just showed clips to our defensemen this morning of them coming across late and finishing through a guy's jersey numbers and essentially slingshotting him up the ice into the rush. So it is tough to get that timing, but I think that's where angling drills, that's where a lot of kind of one-on-one, where somebody's coming from the middle, somebody's skating up the wall. The more you can work on stuff like that, it'll improve your timing. Because I really don't think you want to get into the big banging hits, because the whole part of this, and for me, is the transition element of defending the rush. So wanting to have all 5 of our guys in a good position to still transition quickly. So that's why, again, back to the stick first, through the hands, try to keep that body positioning to now have that forechecker on your back. You move the puck, you've essentially eliminated him from the play, and now you're going 4-on-4 up the other side of the ice.
Yeah. Yeah, that's excellent. Yep. Okay. Now we're going to close the chat here, and thanks again for taking the time to join us tonight. That was excellent. Like I said, I seen this presentation earlier and had to get it on here. I enjoyed it so much. So thanks again for taking the time, and thanks for everybody for taking time out of your busy schedule to hop on here. We've got another one next Monday, I think, with Brian Kane. So we'll be back for that one if you guys are free. Otherwise, let's thank Stephen and Stefan and sign her off for the night.
Yeah, no, thanks to all you guys. I appreciate you listening. And like I said, I'm just talking unless people are willing to listen. So I appreciate you taking the time to listen, and hopefully gave you some insight into how I believe defending should be played. And if you agree, hopefully you can work some of the stuff in with your teams, and all the best.
Okay. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Adios.
Bye.